Okay, welcome along. We have got a busy football show. Momentarily, we'll be joined by Pat Nevin, and then we'll hear from Gary Breen in conversation with Nathan Murphy. We had the Spurs-Man City game live yesterday and off the ball, so the lads had a chat after that at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs winning 2-0, as I'm sure you know by now. Already this weekend, we had Leicester and Chelsea drawn 2-2, Newcastle and Norwich 0-0. Crystal Palace's form has bottomed out. They lost 1-0 to Sheffield United. West Ham 3, Brighton 3. We had Bournemouth, a resurgence, beating Aston Villa 2-1. Everton beating Watford 3-2. Liverpool doing their thing against Southampton 4-0. Manchester United doing their thing, not scoring against Wolves. And Burnley also a resurgence of late, to say the least. A draw against Arsenal following wins against United and Man City. We have Pat Nevin on the line. Good evening, Pat.
Good evening, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Listen, if you're talking to Stuart Hogg, will you pass on our thanks? That was very kind of him.
Have you ever seen anything like that? It's been a long time at the very, very top level you've seen anything like that. And it's a complete brain freeze, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a brain freeze. There is no thought, no reason. You spent your entire life doing that sort of thing and you just put it down. And he didn't. I honestly, do you know when you do sort of any sort of punditry and you try and think of the reasons why, and then sometimes you have no idea. I have no idea what he's thinking about, unless he's trying to get an Irish passport really quickly, and I give up.
It was very strange. I mean, we see sitters being missed in football all the time, but generally at least there is the semi-excuse of the fact that the ball was not in your possession, in your control. There were some variables at play. I mean, it was in his hands.
In your hands, there is no excuse for it. Why you wouldn't just... That's why people dive over the line sometimes, isn't it? You know? Because your body goes down with it instead of placing it down there. It's, I mean, everybody's made mistakes in their life, and you think, why did I do that? And most of us do them, you know, once every blue moon. We just don't happen to do it in the Six Nations in front of everybody else. An incredibly important time. We torture for everyone. I'm in a rugby family. My wife's more of a rugby fan than a football fan, and it was just jaw on the floor time. Nightmare.
If we segue, if it's not too clunky, into bad finishing, then that does take us to Spurs, Manchester City. So, Man City, 30 shots, 10 on target. Spurs had 3 shots in total with 2 on target. Spurs win the game 2-0. So, lest anyone look at this thing from afar and suspect that it was a Mourinho masterclass and they kept City chances to a minimum, that was not the case. City just found themselves missing chances. This is an infection that can attack certain teams.
Yeah, Spurs got really quite lucky on the day. You know, generally, if you have that amount of chances and that amount of opportunities with that amount of decent players on the pitch, you will usually win the game. And now and again, it weirdly doesn't happen. And you've watched over the years Pep saying, you know, that's football, it happens. You shrug your shoulders and you move on. But not if it starts happening a wee bit too frequently, and it is a wee bit more frequently than you would expect with a team of that calibre. It's a kind of weird one. Again, try to figure out the reasons for it. You know, you have to get the right guys on the end of it, but you've got, you know, people, Aguero, you want it to land to him. If it doesn't, and it lands to someone like Gundogan, who's maybe not in the best of finishing form, it's just a shame that's who it lands to. But, you know, it's... I always make an excuse for City. I generally always do, because they're almost always playing really well. They've got loads of possession. It's not always dull possession. It's sometimes with a positive attitude, and it's creating chances. So, you know, in time, generally, you know, you would be saying, you know, that'll be fine. It'll be okay in time. Problem is, you've got this massive spectre of Liverpool sitting there, you know, and they're not doing that. They're not making those sort of mistakes. They just keep on putting it away. And at the moment, I mean, the gap is gigantic. For a team of Manchester City's quality, that is now a gigantic gap. And they're quite clearly looking behind them rather than looking ahead of them just now.
Because we saw City against Manchester United the other night when a chance broke to them in the box and they completely overplayed their hand and never got the shot away, and Guardiola was incensed. So it's fresh on the back of that. It is very tempting to say, well, this is symptomatic, the bad finishing, I mean, symptomatic of a more sloppy Manchester City. But you look at all their running stats, they actually haven't dropped off. They haven't taken, physically anyway, their foot off the pedal. They are still working as hard as they were last year. As you said, Liverpool's brilliance almost heightens the critique that will give to Man City around those missed chances. But I guess with the United one the other night and then this game at the weekend, there is that sense that something has gone awry there.
Yeah, and that's what you're always asking yourself. You think to yourself, right, okay, what's going wrong? What do we do to change it? And then you think that is a really hard question. Do we want less possession? Do we want to create less chances? You know, all the things that you think are the right things that have got Man City to where they were last season, that have got all Pep Guardiola's teams to where they get to. Surely they can't all suddenly be wrong. You know, you can't. But then the other side of it, the big argument back is you can't get lucky that regularly. You know, unlucky that regularly. There must be some reasoning behind it. And I don't know. Maybe it is the spectre. Maybe it is the fact that they've known for quite some time two things. Number one, for a long time, they can't make any mistakes. So there's a tentativeness because you have to make sure every time. So there's a tentativeness in front of the goal, and that's where you're going to see it. You're going to see it in front of the goal. And I suppose the second thing is well, we've lost it now. So is that kind of desperation? Maybe that's lacking to some degree as well, because to score a goal generally you need to be absolutely desperate. There's not that many tap-ins in the game. You still, when you get a chance, there's still somebody pretty damn close to you, usually closing you down. There's still a goalkeeper throwing himself out in front of you, and it's pure desperation, pure focus. So all those things, they have to be right up there. And it's that cliche, everybody always says the same thing. You know, it's the difference between success and failure is 1 or 2% or whatever. And although there's so many points, is it 22 points now?
Yeah.
Something like that between them
yeah.
and Liverpool. And that doesn't sound like a small thing. But it actually might be little small things that are making that difference, you know, and they just accumulate. And they have accumulated for them. And it may well be another thing is City. I must now be on Champions League. I absolutely must now be on Champions League. They'll put all the thoughts, all the consideration in that sort of direction. And, you know, they get beaten the game. I'm not saying they shrugged their shoulders. They will be disappointed, but they know that's not their deal now. They want to get second place, and, you know, they should be able to do that, although Leicester are chasing them. And they want to do Champions League, and they want to get to the end, you know, right to the top of Champions League. They've got a good chance of doing that, because now they can probably, you know, they can take the foot off the gas to some degree and rest the players they need to rest before Champions League games. So, oddly enough, it might have one little shining light at the side, though, but it can't happen again next season. I don't think they can accept that again next season. And
interestingly, Pep Guardiola is trying to pivot expectations a little bit at the moment, because after the game, he said, last year was extraordinary, but people still said you didn't win the Champions League. That is why I will be judged if we don't win it in my final period here, that I will be a failure here, and I know that. So already he's kind of trying to just position the Champions League as the missing piece of the jigsaw, which, to be fair, in many respects, is fair enough, and then that is a glorious tenure if he does manage to win the Champions League.
It's not a big call, though, isn't it?
No,
you know,
no.
Lots of managers just saying to you, you know, it's difficult. You listen to what Frank Lampard's saying recently, you know, we've not got any new players in. Top four might be tough. His is, well, I better win the Champions League now. It's not
a cop-out. No, you're right. It's
not, you're all right with that.
So, John Stones, one last one. You know, Gary Breen on commentary yesterday at one point kind of just remarked, I actually can't believe Otamendi is a Manchester City player. You know, so mistakes there. But it made me curious. John Stones now, as time ticks by, his career is almost disintegrating, like the sand is falling through his hands. Is he that bad defensively? Like, what is the issue with Stones that he can't nail down a place in this team, develop, improve, and become the player that many, many, many people thought he would become? This is a quite extraordinary fall from grace here.
Yeah, including me. I thought he would be phenomenal because he was improving so quickly. He had all the attributes you needed. He was quick, and he still is quick. You know, the fact that he plays the ball well, he's comfortable in the ball, all those sort of things. The things that you expect to learn, you know, I'm sure Gary said it, plenty of people say it, I often say it. A centre-half kind of comes into his own about 25, 26, 27, round about then. Before that, you're still a kid. Every time you need to learn and learn and learn, because every mistake you make gets noticed. And Pep knew that, and Pep was seeing the odd mistake and saying, no, I get it, it's okay. We'll just iron them out and you'll learn the game. But maybe those mistakes didn't stop happening. And he's thinking, well, wait a minute, I've given you all, I've backed you. Because Pep did back him. You really backed him when a lot of people weren't. And he stuck with him, and he thought to himself, well, those things I expected you to improve on, you're still not quite improving. Now, whether they're John Stones' fault 100%, or whether the fact that you're playing with a team that doesn't really cover that position particularly well. And if everybody has, if you're not playing with company beside you, any centre-back's not going to look as good anyway. But I have to say, I'm really surprised. But if he'll watch him training all the time, he'll see him in games, but it's the madness of, it's just about anybody who'll play centre-back before him a lot of the time. Full-backs getting sent in there, centre midfielders getting sent in there. And you mentioned Otamendi, but it's anyone. It's just about anyone who'll get stuck in there beforehand. So it's a massive, massive fall. And I don't often say it about players, but and certainly about Manchester City, but John Stones probably ought to get out, mate. You really ought to get out of there.
Yeah.
It's with you and the manager, it's not working now. And whether you just need to recalibrate and under a different manager, a different system, a different style, and readapt and change. But it's a schism. And it's so bad, you would wonder sometimes, has there been something said between the two? Has there been a fallout? But Stones doesn't seem that type, does he?
No.
He doesn't seem the type he's going to walk in, batter the door and have a go at the manager. It doesn't seem like that. He doesn't seem the type that's gone out drinking and he's fed up with him for that. None of it seems to add up, other than the fact that maybe Pep was expecting more improvement at this point, because he's now in that area now. He's not a young centre-back anymore. This is your career. This is where you should be. You should be coming to your pinnacle. And the question is, has he actually got there? And maybe he hasn't improved in those areas.
Yeah, he's 25 years old now. He has started 3 of the last 8. The last time he played was in that 2-2 draw against Crystal Palace. Guardiola was asked specifically why Stones was not even in the squad for this Spurs game. And he said, no, there's no injury. I decided to bring Eric. That's Eric Garcia, the 19-year-old. I decided to bring Eric. Eric played so good when he played, so I bring him. And that was the extent of the explanation. So there we are. That is the John Stones story. Liverpool, 25 games, because, we have to put Manchester City's failings here into context. I think before yesterday, they were only 5 points off where they were this time last season. Okay, so 25 games in, Liverpool have 73 points. So bear in mind, 73 points. 73 is the number here. After the same number of games, Liverpool on 73. Treble-winning United had 51 points. Complete failures there. Arsenal's Invincibles had 64 to Liverpool's 73. Mourinho's first season at Chelsea, also 64 to the 73. And Guardiola's 100-point City had 68 points. So what they are doing is phenomenal. They would be whacking anybody. And that is part of the story here. The question I wanted to ask you was, the rest of the table is very, very bunched. If you go from kind of 4th, 5th down to relegation zone, there isn't much in it. Bournemouth and Burnley have turned their seasons around with a few results. I heard someone make the argument yesterday that this showed that this was not a good league, that there was only one good team, well, City too as well, but then really very, very average league. So is that your reading of the situation, or is it actually that the Wolves of the world are now much richer than they were a decade ago, and they're actually much better?
You know what? If you're a pessimist, you'll look at it one way. If you're an optimist, you'll look at it the other way.
Okay.
It's a competitive league. You want a competitive league. I'm delighted. It's a great thing to have that level of competition. I don't think, if you look at the teams, it is the best I've ever seen. It's the best league in the world that I've ever seen. It's not that. But certainly there's teams in there that are not fearful of each other anymore. I mean, if you look at the weakness of teams like Arsenal, so you've not got teams turning up at Arsenal scared to death anymore. So I kind of like that. On the other side of it, the side that I don't like about it is there just too many teams that when they go away, they're parking the bus, and that's kind of making the game a little bit dull. That's the only thing I've got about it. All the other stuff is, no, they're just much of a muchness. They're pretty close together. The best ones have probably got slightly less good than they were. I mean, Chelsea aren't as good as a team as they've been in the past. Certainly Spurs aren't as good as the team they were for a couple of years there. So there's a drop there, 100%. So those ones have dropped a bit down. The others, they've moved up a bit. I mean, and that's a really good thing. You say Wolves, but, Burnley have been where Burnley always are. And I love that bunching. It'll change, it'll adapt. I just like the idea that there's a willingness to adapt and you've got different ideas in it. Just looking at the bottom of it, though, Norwich do seem a distance away, but I still like watching them. And they're not a terrible team, but, they've just not got enough kind of quality, maybe in the final third, and particularly as goal scorers. And yeah, they are a little bit sluggish and slow at the back in comparison to all the other teams. But other than that, is there a team down there that you think, right, you're absolutely useless, you're absolutely hopeless, and you're not good enough, you won't stay in the league? I don't think there is one. You can watch Watford sometimes, and they can go and take on anyone, and they're second bottom just now. So it's a poor league. Yeah, you can say that if you like, but I think it just depends on whether you're a pessimist or an optimist. There's quite a few things I'm liking about it. And it's probably something else, by the way. I don't know if you noticed this, or anyone's noticed it. It completely crossed me by. Liverpool last season, you know, the goals they scored. Do you know 30 of their goals were made by their fullbacks? And I've just realised what a difference that is making to them, because they're doing the same again this year. And I kind of hadn't realised it. You start looking at everybody else. Who else is getting that sort? No one's as close to it. So we're all talking all these different reasons why Liverpool are miles ahead, and there's a whole bunch of different reasons. But it is those different reasons. Or you can look at Salah, or you can look at, you know, whatever Mane. You can look at, well, Henderson's having a great time. And then you look at the fullbacks. It's not just the good fullbacks that can create some goals. It's create it's so many goals. So it is a case of, you look at Liverpool and you think, oh yeah, they're absolutely brilliant and better than everyone else. I think that's just because they are an extraordinarily special team. And I was with a couple of Liverpool players recently, and you know, the old school guys, and for a long time they've been saying, you know, there's lots of reasons why this team aren't as good as, and they're all beginning to waver a bit now, aren't they? They're beginning to think, actually, there's not really many arguments left now. They are amazing. They are absolutely stunning.
No, the coughs are softening, I would suspect. I know obviously you're friendly with David Moyes, so West Ham and Brighton drew 3-3. That leaves them, West Ham that is, with 1 win and 8. And I suppose the issue is the fixture list upcoming. They have Man City away, Liverpool away, they'll have Southampton, then they have Arsenal, then they have Wolves, then they have Spurs away, and then they have Chelsea. Now, there's not much reprieve there. David Moyes said, I'm angry. The players know I'm disappointed. In the main, we're very good. This is the Brighton game, obviously. But a couple of really silly mistakes, which is often the curse of teams who are fighting for survival. You'll often hear managers say that. So I know you rate him, I know you respect him, and he's gone in there and he's struggling to turn this thing around. How turnable around is it?
It is, because they're only, you know, there's only 2 or 3 wins and you're out of there. I mean, you watched the nightmare Everton had, and there they are, well, mid-table, absolutely fine, no problems at all. And you can do it, but you need everybody to completely and utterly buy into it. I kind of like the fact that the last game I was at was a game they played at Leicester a few weeks ago there, and anyway, no one could have done anything because that team just went off it at all. It was awful. He tried different systems. He got a bit of a lift out of them for a period of time. But you're looking through that grouping of players there, and I just don't know if there's enough, not particularly up front. I mean, really, it's hardly going to score enough goals for you. I'm just not sure that's going to be enough. He's going to have to find a way of kind of, you know, just grabbing points here and there, and sneaking little wins that you probably didn't deserve. I mean, having said that, had they won in the weekend, which they probably should have won with the opportunities they had and the position that they were in, probably wouldn't be talking that much about them just now, because you know they've had a decent little run. West Ham, with the previous games that they'd had. Actually, I'm talking about a different game here. I'm talking about, you know, let me have a look up. Yeah, the Brighton game. But they blew it. They absolutely blew it. And it's the stupidity of mistakes. It's just the one that had the deflection and went back, and you're just looking at it thinking, that's bizarre. That never happens. So when that starts happening, I think what you're suggesting is probably true. You know, when the luck's against you as well as the confidence, it starts falling apart. I'm not writing them off yet. Okay. I don't write anyone off at the bottom of the league now, because every one of them have shown that they're capable of going in a little bit of a run. I'm just not sure about, and I don't know if it's Moyes. I just think it might be the group. I think it might be the team. There's just not enough good players there.
Meanwhile, your favourite team, Leicester, who you never miss, once again. Once again, you're at a Leicester match. So it was Leicester 2, Chelsea 2.
Do you know, I was dying to talk about that game. Nothing to do with Chelsea, right? And everything got to do with that is the best old school game of football I've seen this season. And I mean old school, right? And you forget what it's like sometimes. You mean, if you're watching Premier League every week and you're going to see games, and you've seen a lot of very tactical games, and you see Man City playing that tactical way, and then bursting, and then everyone getting in positions, and you kind of close your eyes and you know what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
And every team's kind of got that style. And this game was mayhem. It was just bizarre. And just, hey, that's what it used to be like. It wasn't, and also back onto those teams that, put 9 behind the ball and they play in the break, expecting 3 or 4 breaks, and that's a tactic everyone does as well, particularly away from home. And then you go and watch 2 teams that say, stuff that, let's just have a game of football.
That's been the Chelsea way all year, really, though, isn't it, in the main?
It has. And it's kind of Leicester as well, to be honest. Most of the time it's Leicester as well. So it shouldn't have been that much of a shock to me that game went like that. And it's no exaggeration. It came to 85 minutes and I looked up at the clock and I thought it would be about 62. And it was 85. The game's just flown like that. And every moment of it was enjoyable. And it's not a case it was millions of stupid mistakes all the time either. It was just an openness of the game, a length of the game, a willingness for every player just about in the pitch. Or both fullbacks are hammering forward, they're really open in the midfield. They're desperate to score all the time. They're throwing everybody up for corners and free kicks. And then they want to just play. And honestly, I don't often say it because I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy old git. But it really did make you think, oh, God, I wish it was like that again a wee bit more often. It was an utter joy of a game of football to watch. Now, anybody watching it on telly, I hope it came across. Because I walked outside afterwards. I'd get the train up from London. I was in London. I got a train up for London, and I got a train back down. Honestly, that train was buzzing. Yeah. And it was 2-2. The place was absolutely... I walked out. It was really, really good fun. And it's... I'd watch Leicester most weeks. And Chelsea are kind of the same, but it kind of doesn't always work for them because at Stamford Bridge, you get people just sitting back. Honestly, I'd watch Chelsea Leicester every day of the week.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. Nobody wants to be the back in my day merchant, but there is no doubt some of the vibrancy has gone out of games when this kind of positional choreography is just so embedded in their DNA from academy level. And as you said, you have a vague, if not a very good idea of what everyone's going to do at given moments. And it just loses some of the spark. It loses kind of, in a way, when you think about it at its core, what kind of football and most sports are, that unpredictability, that immediate reaction in the moment. So much of that now is choreography.
Let's take Manchester City for a few years there. I'm going to leave Liverpool out of this because I think they are cavalier. I think they're another
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Leave Liverpool out of this because they're great. They do it brilliantly. Just off the scale. But Manchester City, right, even though I love what they've done when they were at their best, because it was beautiful and it was this little tiki-taka chess match, bang, 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 took ages but finally got through. But did it have you in the edge of your seat all the time, really?
No, and nobody felt particularly good saying that the Spanish team were a bit boring for a while, but it was true.
Yeah, absolutely. Even Barcelona sometimes, they passed teams to death, and it wasn't a game. It was an exhibition. And we all like exhibitions, but, I'd rather go and watch a competition than an exhibition. And it felt like exhibition games a lot of the time. And I'd to take nothing away from them, the best technical side I've ever been, and some brilliant skills and great goals. But there is that little thing of, I don't want blood and thunder, and I don't want all the guts and heavy tackles. It's not that you're looking for. It's just an openness and a willingness and a...
Spontaneity. Spontaneity is the word I was looking for.
And it's hard, but the thing is, it takes 2 to tango in that one. You can't do one team doing that. I feel sorry for Liverpool sometimes because they have to play against that. Quite often when I go to see them at Anfield, teams are sitting in and they kind of have to try and do that play through all the time. But at least they've got a cavalier attitude and don't let it drop. And that's why he used to love the heavy metal football, and they bring that on in those sort of days. But there was that kind of wistful moment. And look, hey, it's not just football. It happens. You've seen it in rugby. We started off with rugby tonight. You've seen it in rugby. It was a period of time. I remember England won the World Cup. And I remember I used to love watching the 70s, 80s rugby when there was a lot of passing and moving the ball, and it was beautiful and it was fantastic. And balls all moving. And then you watch them and it was like kick to touch and it was just kick for position all the time. And you're thinking, this is dull. No one's running the ball. Sports happen. They adapt, they change. And I just hope that, the successful teams now are, and they are, Liverpool are doing it. So let's hope everyone thinks, that kind of Barcelona, Man City thing was really, really good. But let's have a look at Liverpool now and what they're doing. Because if everyone starts doing that, we'll have a great product again.
Well, that's true. Before you go then, I think you were either at Manchester United and Wolves 0-0 or you watched it.
Well, I watched most of it.
Okay.
Oh, it was tough.
I didn't. I had a busy weekend at different bits and bobs. I didn't get to see this, so give me the quick version.
But to be honest, the quick version is that Manchester United looked like the sort of team that could happen to. You know, that could happen. And there is a huff and puff about it, but certain players, and again, you know, there was one or two players who I rate. You so miss Rashford. It's massive how the team changes when he's not there, because there's a lack of stretch in the team. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. But he's got skills now that are really improving. So as soon as he's gone, you realise, oh, actually, he wasn't quite good. It was bleeding brilliant, you know, and it makes a big difference. And then the others around him who are getting spacer because he's moving are getting less so, and they look lesser players because of it. And, you know, I kind of feel sorry for them, but, you know, that's the deal. You need to lose your best players now and again. I was actually watching it on a TV screen, because I was coming from Leicester. I had to get to an airport, sat in an airport lounge watching it. And the amount of people who watched it for 10 minutes and then stood up and walked away,
yeah.
It was constant. And not to get a plane, then get some food and come back again. And they all say the same thing. Still 0-0.
Yeah.
And with no excitement, and actually very little expectation as well. So it was a wee bit disappointing because there was a real opportunity there. You know, Chelsea slip up. You know, they've got a chance to go and push on and press on, but they never make anywhere near good enough use of it. And if you're looking at Manchester United this season, they look as if they should be good enough to get top four, and the answer's still no.
They've signed Odion Ngallo, which didn't exactly have fans turning up at Ed Woodward's house to say sorry. Former Watford striker. Yeah, I know. Is he trolling them? Is this just like a middle finger to them? And now, look, he scored 39 and 99 for Watford before, but he's been on loan over in China, I think, and it's 4 million in what am the word I'm looking for? In loan fees and his wages, and it's just like, you know, the kind of silly signing a team in United's position end up making and justifying somehow. Bruno Fernandes I'm more interested in. Is he the missing link to anything?
Could be. He's a good player. There's no doubt about that. He looked lively enough. He does look lively enough in that midfield there, but we've seen a number of players come to Man United and look great for a wee moment and then fall away, because the expectation, as everyone says, is huge there. But it's the expectation of him to drag the rest up with him. You know, if you're a new player coming in, you kind of want to come in and, you know, fit in with something really good. They're kind of almost expecting him to come in and then drag everybody else behind him. That's a big call to do somewhere, you know, anywhere, but Manchester United in particular, especially if there's no great expectation of Pogba being able to do it week in, week out for you anytime soon. But you never know. It could change. It could switch like that. He's had really good periods in his career already as Manchester United manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But the one thing I would say about them, they've got the player they kind of wanted, you know, and that's the unusual thing about that transfer window. I thought there was going to be a lot of panic buying, and there wasn't a lot of panic buying. It's actually quite sensible. I think he's a good buy. Because that is his value, and he's available, so you get him. That's fine. You know, obviously they're going to buy £4 million for a centre forward. That's just a punt. There's nothing more than that. It's just cover, and it might score you a few goals, and that's absolutely fine. But do you really want to go and spend the monies that, I mean, a classic one, this Cavani was one of the big calls that was going on just now. And there were I heard some suggestion of 23 million euros or something like that was wanted for him by PSG for a guy who's the age he is, who's injured quite a lot, who's at the end of the contract anyway. He ain't getting a game. And by the way, there's a reason for that as well. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but really, is that where you're going to go forward?
Yeah.
And the fact that nobody was panicked into that, too many of those sort of deals, it just made me think there's a wee bit more sense in the league just now. It surprised me, because I expected this was the one, because it's also tight and also close, and, you know, and a couple of points will make a big difference. I thought they would panic, but there wasn't much panicking going on.
Yeah, fair enough. There was a time when United used to get Henrik Larsson on loan, but those days are... Well,
there's not many of them.
No, it's not. There's not, to be fair. Just a last one. What of Solskjaer's demeanour through this period at the moment? What are you seeing?
Just everybody goes under sort of pressure. You know, the funny thing is, he's not used to that pressure. He's not used to that. Nobody is until you walk into that. You know, often, to talk about in a Scottish context, anyone who's ever managed Celtic or Rangers always says, it doesn't matter. You think you know, but you don't until you're there. And I think Manchester United is exactly the same. You might know the club, you may have watched it. Everybody thinks they know. It's like being a player. Everyone thinks they know how to be a player because they watch players. It's kind of different when you're out there. It's kind of different when you're standing in that one. And he's made a couple of, I think, quite obvious mistakes, reacting to things that he shouldn't have reacted to. But I understand why you would do that. He's still fairly young. He's still fairly new in the job. He's still fairly new as a manager. But I don't think he's made as many mistakes as a lot of people have suggested. And if he gets a bit nippy sometimes, if he, I think when he gets back to his normal personality, which is that the laid back one you see now and again, where he's giving not a lot away and there's a wee smile on his face, I think that helps him, helps the fans, but it absolutely hugely helps the guys in the dressing room as well, because they see a confidence that might actually not be in there, but they need to see that as well. So that demeanour that is the slightly more confident, slightly relaxed, slightly chirpier one that he's got, he needs to keep on bringing that to the fore again.
Okay. Pat Nevin, as ever, on a Monday. Thanks, Pat.
Pleasure. See you soon.